The Devil of Hell's Kitchen is back to end Kingpin's reign as mayor in Season 2 of Daredevil Born Again.
So we pick up with Daredevil Born Again Season 2, and it kicks off not too long after the events of Daredevil Season 1. You've got Matt kind of on the run and hiding a little bit as, Mayor Fisk's vigilante task force is out terrorizing the city of New York and in their own eyes, keeping law and order about. But you kick right in with what felt like a very old school Netflix Daredevil type scene on the Northern Star, which is this ship, and you have Daredevil kind of sulking around in the shadows and trying to infiltrate the ship to see what's going on, to try to get whatever evidence he can to help bring Kingpin down. That's kind of his whole mission here, is to try to save the city of New York from the evil mayor Kingpin now, and you get the classic black Daredevil with the 2 Ds on it.
I thought we were going to have to wait a little bit for it. It's like opening scene.
They jumped right into it, which was really cool. I was happy to see that suit. It looked phenomenal, and that just kind of kicks off the whole set of events where you find out there's guns that they're running into the port here under Fisk's watch, and he's just using this for his own business means and all of that. That was the whole point of setting up the port last season, and him being able to kind of keep things going while running under the guise of being the star, the guy that's going to end all crime and keep
savior of New York.
Yeah, he's going to keep the streets safe and all of that. Just whatever BS he wants to peddle to the people of New York, and it kicks off the rest of the events of the season from there, and it's just this season, if I could sum it up, it felt like a big step forward for Born Again, the Born Again run here on Disney, because we had season 1 that wasn't without some of its issues, especially with the start and the restart of trying to create this show, while keeping the Netflix continuity as much as they could, and then just kind of having that stilted, disjointed creative direction a little bit that they had in season 1. There was none of that in season 2. Like, this felt very seamless and throughout this entire season, and I gotta say, it was a big step up from season 1 in my opinion, and I love Daredevil so much, and this felt so much like that old school Daredevil show that I fell in love with on Netflix.
Yeah, it felt like a very cohesive season, that the stories that they were trying to tell was all put together really well and strong, and yeah, it felt like it was kind of going back to the Netflix series. You had some gritty, dark violence in it. You're dealing with Matt kind of not knowing. We're going to get into some spoilers. It's been a couple weeks, so with us talking about it now, we're going to go into a little bit of spoilers about it, but you do get not only Matt and Karen on the run, but Bullseye is also hiding out and stuff. So you get to see some very dark scenes with Bullseye, especially one in a diner that he just kind of...
The opening scene of the season.
...goes off, yeah. And because you get him going through his apartment and what he's up to now, but it's that kind of gray area with him, all right? He's a bad guy, but he's doing some good stuff this season, and there's an interesting dynamic between him and Matt and just how they're approaching things this season. But yeah, this was definitely a step in the right direction of getting things back on track. After you said the first season, they started filming it, they had to basically throw everything out and then redo it, but they kept some of it. So you did feel a little disjointed in season 1. And this one was very clear cut, very dark about, everyone's writing. You have very cut and dry. If you're for Fisk, you can only be for Fisk and nothing else. And if you're against him, you're trying your hardest to end him. And you got some really decent dynamics with her. You get a little bit deeper dive into Heather kind of losing her mental state a bit more. And by the end of the season, we get to see her do something that we expected to see after the end of season 1, as she puts on that Muse mask, and you get to see that, all right, we got something interesting happening with her at the end of the next season, because, yeah, you kind of liked her in season 1 until the end when she went on Fisk's side. And this whole season, you just loathe her.
She's very hateable now.
Deep loathe for her because of how she's just become a lapdog for Fisk, and she's rigging tests to make it look like the swordsman is much more of a bad person than he is, and just helping Fisk game the system. And a lot of that is the basis of this season, is about Fisk gaming politics and the government and the police and gaming everything to get his way. And again, Vincent is just unbelievable as Wilson Fisk. You get some really dark, emotional stuff from him this season, including, and I know we'll talk about it more towards the end, that final episode when you finally get to see like Fisk's rage.
Yeah.
That was a wild sequence.
Yeah, that was just absolutely insane. But there's some major story beats that are told throughout this season that, you know, kind of move things forward in a way that felt very satisfying. You have all the stuff with Vanessa and their you know, the relationship and, you know, her, like him wanting to keep her away from things while she's also connected to it. Like there was that real raw tension between the two of them the entire season up until, you know, she, like I said, spoilers, met her untimely end in a very dramatic scene that played out over the course of 2 episodes, really, because it was kind of the ending of one where you thought, oh, did she actually die here? And then the next episode where they followed up.
But
on
did
it,
you
very
notice
dramatic.
that glass was in her head when Fisk was about to, you know, shoot there? Like it's such good detail because it could have just had it happen, like do that detail after she had fallen. But when you look at Fisk in the ring and you see Vanessa behind, you can see that shard just sticking out of her temple. And I was like, they went there.
Very intense, very dark, very graphic, and that they definitely upped the brutality in this season for sure. Like there was a lot more of that, and you know it was a very heavy thing. And then you see the spiral from Wilson beyond that. Like his moral compass is no longer there. So what's that going to do for him? And that moral compass kind of in a way transitions over to Buck a little bit. And I got to give credit there because Buck was fantastic in this season. You also have the Michael Gandolfini as Daniel, who was phenomenal in this season as well. They were not afraid to kill people off as well in this season. Like you said, the Daniel death was very intense, and you didn't know which way it was going to play out, but you kind of did once you knew that he let, you know, BB go and do all of that he was gonna unfortunately meet his end with Buck.
It was apparently shocking to the actor too, because the gunshot happened in post-production. They didn't know or realize that happened. That's something they did in editing.
They shot 2 different scenes for that, which is crazy that you see it play out the way it did, but you kind of, I mean, the way they told the story, it made sense that he would meet his end. But you have Matt still very much dealing with, you know, he's leaning much more into the Daredevil portion of his character now, because that's what he kind of has to be to stop Fisk. But you still see him trying to be Matt a little bit here and a little bit there. And then obviously with the last episode, which I kind of want to save to talk about for a little bit, just because of how absolutely spectacular that episode is overall. One of my top probably 3 or 4 favorite Daredevil episodes of all time is that final episode of the season. But yeah, this didn't really suffer from any real pacing issues, in my opinion. This season flowed very smoothly. You had, you know, Matt at the focus of a lot of it, but you also had time to breathe out with some of these other characters. You get the introduction, we haven't even touched on him yet, of Matthew Lillard's Mr. Charles, who is kind of this, what branch of the government is he really working for? Who's he aligned with? You find out that he's got a little bit to do with Valentina, who's like kind of one of the big shadowy type people in the MCU. And it kind of leads me to have a little bit of a theory for Bullseye and what could be in the future for him as far as the show and the overall MCU, because I have a very interesting theory of what I think they're doing with him, which would be kind of cool. But yeah, just a lot going on in this season, but it just flowed so smoothly and so well that this felt so much more like the Daredevil show that I've loved, you know, for several years now. And it was such a refreshing, it was so refreshing to bring it back to have that feeling with the show that was very much must watch as soon as the episode drops this season for me, which I know it hasn't been the case for everybody, but like for me personally, it has. And
I went on vacation in the middle of it, so I was like 3 episodes behind because for a week I went out, it was a double episode, and I didn't have time to watch those 2 before the next one, so I had a few to catch up on, but I binged those, and then it was appointment viewing. I had to get back on track and watch those every single week to get. But yeah, I love the interactions between Mr. Charles and Fisk that we got, because he's not afraid of Fisk. He kind of has that cocky, arrogant attitude to him, like, well, I'm much bigger than you, and I'm dealing with some much bigger fish, and you're just a little fish in that. And you get to see that tension in Fisk, that he wants to just go over and crush his skull, but he knows he can't right now because of who's pulling the strings behind him. So you just get to see that little bit of just just containing the rage some, until you get a scene where, Fisk asserted his dominance with Mr. Charles, of like, hey, I'm not dealing with that anymore. You're going to listen to me. And it was just, that dynamic was a lot of fun. I know Vincent talked about, like, he didn't like Matthew Lillard at all when they were filming because of that. Like, their scenes together was just about Mr. Charles getting under the skin of Fisk and annoying him and just kind of poking the bear. So you can see why, when they're doing such intense scenes, that could happen in reality. Like you said, he doesn't have actually anything against him, but it's because their scenes were so intense with the animosity between them that he was like, I kind of didn't like Matthew while we were doing that.
It's good stuff.
But yeah, it was such a fun season. It's a dark season. I mean, you're dealing with a lot of death. You're dealing with people being, again, it mirrors reality in a lot of ways. That, something like The Boys is doing it on purpose, they said, with this, and they weren't exactly trying to mirror reality, but yeah, you got people just being rounded up because they might have looked at a vigilante or posted something about a vigilante, or just looked at someone the wrong way, one of the task force agents and stuff. And so you got a lot of darkness with that. And then you have everything with Bullseye and this Matt being missing. So you've got Karen and other people worried and not knowing what's going on with him. And you have Matt trying to uncover all the evidence he can to take Fisk down, but he's so handicapped, which leads to...
Pun not intended.
Pun not intended. One of the more fun aspects of the season is that we got another Netflix character back, and then we got Jessica Jones joining this season to help Matt out, and that's looking like it's going to snowball a little bit heading into season 3.
Yeah, that was awesome, because I believe she finally showed up in episode 6.
Yeah, it was pretty late.
The kickoff for I want to say it was episode 6, because I kept waiting, because God love Disney, they just couldn't help themselves, and they were advertising her back in the show, but she didn't show up till almost 3/4 of the way through the season. But you get just a really fun introduction of Jessica Jones back, and then you see that she has a daughter, and you could tell by the daughter who the father is right away based on just looking at the daughter. If you've watched anything of there, then you get the hints of him being off on a mission for Mr. Charles, whatever that means and whatever that entails. But you finally get, by the end, him showing up as well. And that definitely leads to, what we were kind of expecting a little bit, coming out of season 1 into season 2, we were expecting more of the Defenders to show up here. Obviously the news broke that Jessica Jones was coming back, but you had, by the end of the season, you had a brief glimpse at Luke Cage walking in the door too, finally, in that final episode. It's okay, now we're getting some of these guys back, and obviously that begs the question, is Danny Rand going to show up? And if you've been on social media, unfortunately, that's probably been spoiled for you too. But, it's very obvious here that you're dealing more of the Defenders coming in. And I just love that, because I want to see them get the opportunity to write the story for some of these characters. But yeah, what a run this season goes on, man. Because you get the whole Matt just kind of coming to the realization that he can't, as much as he wants to and feels like he needs to take all of that burden of stopping Fisk himself. He can't do it by himself. He has to lean on these people. He has to get help. And he gets some of that in some cases, and people jump in and help whether he wants them to or not. And I love that dynamic that they play with, because he's just so darn stubborn. That he still, for a lot of ways, just wants to keep everybody at arm's length, but you can't in this case. Fisk is too entrenched, too dug in deep. He's got too much backing, and too much that for one man to really take it on. You get the you get the help, and it's so good where all of this is going. I'm really excited for the future of this show.
Oh yeah, and this season really got meaty when you got into like episode 4 and beyond. Because 4, you got the boxing matches really stylized, interestingly
really
done, and that's when you get everything with Vanessa. But 5 was another highlight of this season.
Fantastic,
Because it was a big flashback episode.
Yeah.
So we got to see Matt and Foggy return, you know, back in starting of their practice and stuff and their first cases, and Foggy kind of teaching Matt how, you know, we're here for the law to uphold the law and do this, but you also got, which I didn't expect, is that you got his former buck. You got him coming back in there and got to see him one more time. And that was like it was incredible to see all of the kind of back and forth and all of that. I think that was episode 5. It was right there in the middle when they did that flashback, but pretty much a whole episode was a flashback. And you got just so many characters and people from the Netflix series that we hadn't seen yet coming back in there, and we just got so much kind of good stuff to see a different kind of look at, because it's trying to set up where, you know, Vanessa is hurt and possibly dying, and you have a lot of stuff going on, and seeing where Fisk was when he met her and how he met her again, but from a slightly different angle. And, you know, a case that was very important to Matt's thinking of what he wants to do with something this season and how he handles everything. But it was a greatly done flashback sequence that really got the nostalgia, because, you know, a lot of us were waiting after season 1 that, all right, there is a storyline in the comics where Foggy was killed, but actually he wasn't, and he was put in witness protection, and we kind of got us spoiled that he was going to be in season 2, but we didn't really know what
capacity.
And that was for the flashback, but it was very smartly done to be able to give us more Foggy without retconning his death. So it does look like his death is permanent in this world, and if we're going to see any more of them, it's going to be flashbacks and stuff. But it was so well done to make it feel like the Netflix series when they did the flashbacks.
Yeah, it was so good, so well written. I love that episode too. And you get, you know, everything just kind of coming to a head. You get, you know, Fisk kind of losing his grip a little bit as far as, you know, he's lost without Vanessa at this point. You get, you know, Bullseye trying to make amends for, you know, he's on this mission to kind of rid himself of whatever guilt he's feeling to kind of help Daredevil out with Fisk here. Like he's in that mind space, and you have that really good scene where they're chasing them down after the attack on Vanessa, and you know that whole scene where they're chasing Daredevil and Bullseye, and they have their trying to get along but can't get along, and then like, you know, Bullseye gets really wounded, but Matt by the end, you know, when they're at the church and trying to hold them off to not let him take him, and it looks like he's going to abandon Bullseye in the church and let the agents get him. And then you have that final flashback with him and Foggy, and just kind of remembering, you know, who they are and what they stand for. And he goes back and you see him extend the hand and pulls him up and gets him out of there. And it was a really cool, powerful episode for sure. But yeah, you just get all this coming to a head, and man, I think we can go ahead and talk about the final episode, which was just an absolute masterpiece of a show, because you get, you know, by the end of episode 7, Karen gets taken by the agents. She winds up in prison, like she's being held. She's getting ready to stand trial, and Fisk is trying to use her case to kind of make an example of vigilantes and people that are against his rule, and you get this really powerful like scene between, you get your face off with, even though it's through prison bars, between Fisk and Karen, where Karen just kind of stands up to him where she's terrified of him, but she doesn't let him know that she's terrified of him. And they have a really tense and powerful interaction and things where he basically grabs her by the throat and just kind of asserts his dominance. He's like, I've got you right where I want you, kind of thing. And it was very, very intense. But we get another old Netflix cameo in that at the precinct, and we get our old pal Brett, who I cheered loudly when I saw him show up, and I'm just like, I was very happy to see my man Brett from the Netflix the Netflix show here kind of helping out a little bit too. But man, what a final episode we get here, man.
Is you got Matt, who I believe is in episode 7. This is only 8-episode season, which I wanted more just simply because I was loving the season so much, but it did a fine job of telling everything it needed to do in 8 episodes. But yeah, towards the middle end of 7, you get Matt comes out of hiding to help with Karen's case, to be a as her attorney and stuff, and that, you know, that brings up a whole lot of stuff. And of course, Fisk was trying to draw him out, but he wasn't sure exactly. It had such a great dynamic because Fisk thinks he's playing Matt, and Matt thinks he's playing Fisk, and so they're just going back and forth at each other in that dynamic in the courtroom when Fisk finally has to take the stand and tell the truth, and you get to see kind of task force agents and which ones are the 100% loyal and the ones that are kind of shaking with their loyalty, but also everybody he has on his payroll that he's commanding to do what he wants, including the 3 judges. I mean, I wanted to just go after those 3 judges through everything that's gone in here, because we had a case that we didn't really talk about the swordsman was being like the very first kind of case that was going to be just slamming the door on the vigilantes and just showing what they're going to do. But we ended up getting that kind of taken care of in a way that, you know, Matt ended up having to break him out and getting him on the run and stuff. But, you know, that was supposed to be the one. So now it's going to be Karen. All right, I'm going to show if you help a vigilante, you're going to go down just like that. And Fisk is overly confident when he gets on that stand that, well, I've got the judges and I've got the DA and I've got the psychiatrist. I've got everything I need to do. And I've got Matt because I know his secret and I know who he is. And I can play with that. And you got one of the most shocking moments in the series, because when Matt feels like he's losing grip because they're not allowing him to go as deep as he wants or do exactly what he wants to get the information out because the task force are protecting him and everything else, Matt just straight up says, I'm Daredevil. Yep. No one believes him. So he takes out his sticks and just bounces it around the room and catches it and like, okay, you're Daredevil.
My favorite cut that they did, and it just made me laugh because it was silly, but it was awesome at the same time. Because you do the whole shtick, and the Billy Club comes right back to him. And you just cut the pal, and he's just got this smirk on his face. He's like, he's a blind lawyer who can fight. That's crazy. Like,
I got my butt kicked multiple times by a blind guy.
By a blind lawyer who can fight. But it was awesome. He gets his kind of Iron Man type moment where he's like, I am Daredevil, and you know, it just throws
no
everything
Burger
in
King
a
Whoppers
tailspin.
to eat.
Right, nothing. You know what I mean? But you get, you know, you finally get everybody to kind of turn on Fisk at this point where it's just like, okay, it's irrefutable. It's on camera. The judges are even saving face at this point where they're like, you know, we're dismissing the charges against Karen, and you just really get to show why Matt is a really good lawyer, as we like to joke. But man, after that, it just goes into absolute chaos because you have the people that are ready to storm the courthouse and get to Fisk because they've had enough, and you've got this rebellious uprising that's ready to do it, and you get the standoff with the cops, and you see the one cop who canonically in the comics, if you're nerdy enough and go that deep, know that he's been on Daredevil's side, but he was on Fisk's side for basically majority of this. He kind of stands aside and lets him go after Fisk, but
very tense standoff between the police and the task force there, because you weren't sure just how it was going to go.
Very tense standoff, and you finally get the task force, you know, acquiescing and letting them through, and that just leads to one of the craziest sequences we've had in the show's history up until now. And you get the showdown where Fisk just goes off and just kind of lets loose, and you have what amounts to 2 different fighting sequences that were both shot and coordinated very well. I love that because on one side you have the task force trying to go after and get Daredevil by any means. The ones that are still loyal to Fisk are going after Daredevil, but he's got Jessica Jones there with him because she was at the trial. So you get this really cool like hallway fight with a bunch of the task force guys versus Daredevil and Jessica Jones on one side, and then you have all of the protesters and and the rebellious uprising citizens versus Fisk in the other one, and you just see Fisk is just full brutality, like
Just fully murdering
if you
people.
think back to like that episode at the end of season 1 where he takes the one guy and just kind of unhinges his jaw and snaps his jaw and basically rips half of his face off, you get that times like 100 here because it's just an absolutely intense, bloody, violent fight in this hallway, and he's just manhandling everyone that comes,
breaking people.
yeah, just comes into their way, and he's throwing people like crazy and snapping necks and breaking backs and smashing in faces, and it's just insanely over the top violent. And you get kind of the other side of it where they're not really killing them, but they're fighting them just as intensely with, you know, Jessica and Matt trying to get to the point. And then he gets to the point where they all come to a head and they've got Fisk kind of pinned down, and you know, he gets, they get a really powerful moment there too between them, and you get kind of the end of Fisk in New York, I think, for this now, because he has to go and, like, by the end of the episode, you see him off on this island somewhere kind of on his own and, you know, kind of out of power now because the governor's finally stood up to him. And you know, this is part of his, I guess, plea agreement to, because, I mean, he wasn't ever on trial, but it was just kind of part of his, like, okay.
Yeah, they got an offer. You either have to leave New York
Yeah.
or you're going down.
Right. Like, these are your two options. So, obviously, being the criminal that he is, chooses the easy way out and goes and does the island thing. But I'm curious to see how that's going to play into season 3 as well, because, you know, Fisk isn't going to stay away for too long. It does kind of feel like we're going to be pivoting a little bit more away from Fisk potentially here in season 3, but there's also a very real issue of what is that power vacuum now going to look like in New York now that Fisk could potentially not be fully involved. Who's going to step up and kind of be the problem that they have to deal with, especially if you have all of the Defender stuff. And I'm kind of wondering, you know, just kind of getting a little bit broader picture here, you very much see that you have to deal with, like, the Hand is involved in the Spider-Man movie, how that's going to tie into the street level part.
Yeah, you got to see what
Marvel.
Spider-Man is going to affect season 3.
Yeah, because now you got potentially the Hand back in the Disney part of the MCU now, and you wonder how that's going to play into needing. Obviously, the big thing with the Defenders was they were fighting the Hand, they were fighting that organization, and you know, you had your Defenders. Obviously, you have Luke and Jessica and Matt here. Matt winds up still, because he's a vigilante and it's the rule of law at this point, going to prison because he's Daredevil. Like, he still winds up having to go to prison. And that's going to be an interesting thing where it kicks off in season 3, because I have some theories about it too, as far as what they're going to do with it. But you know, like, if you got 3 of the 4 Defenders, Danny Rand's probably not that far behind. Just spoilers off the internet aside, like, you just know logically that's where they're probably going to wind up going. And I'm excited to see in what capacity Danny Rand has. And I'm just going to kind of dive into it now. Let me go into it here for a second. Let me go on a little bit of a tangent. I think Danny Rand is going to be taking up potentially the mantle of Daredevil while he's in jail. Potentially. Like, kind of doing some Daredevil-esque type stuff. Because if you go back to the Defenders, he tells Danny, protect my city, you know, that kind of thing. When they all assumed he was dead. You know, at the end of the Defenders before Daredevil season 3. And I'm wondering if they're going to make a play on that in this, and what his involvement at some point is going to be. Who knows? I could be way off base, but I hope that it's something like that. But God, what a final episode, man!
Right. It was brutal.
So good.
It was violent. I can see some people could be a little frustrated with the fact that Fisk just basically got away as mayor with everything, along with murdering so many civilians and stuff, because he gets a plea deal and he gets to go to a beach and relax, and Matt gets to go to prison. But unfortunately, that's kind of a reflection of society in the world right now, that the rich and powerful get away with things, while the ones who are trying to do the right thing are the ones having the fall. So it's still really very political in that way.
Very much
and
so.
It's going to be very interesting in season 3 how much of that political part of it, is it going to be the Defenders defending the city while Matt is on trial and seeing what they go there? Is it going to be the citizens coming to try to get him out because was the one protecting the city, because he had to go to extremes because of who he was going against? And Like, how can you have Fisk walk away and you charge him with stuff that was maybe 2% of what Fisk did? It's going to be realistic how political they charge the third season, because Matt's going to be in prison. We've had some great prison sequences in, Daredevil's Netflix series and stuff, so could get some nice jail fights in there with Matt, but it's going to be interesting to see how Matt ends up getting out of jail and when in that third season, and see how that affects us. Yeah, we don't really know who we're going to get, and we do know Spider-Man is going to affect it in some way, because we already know Punisher, Frank Castle is in that, so the worlds are colliding a little bit there. So is that going to change anything? Are we going to be dealing with anything from Spider-Man Brand New Day? There's already theories because, we see Spider-Man fighting the Hand in a prison. Is that going to be related to Daredevil anyway? You got Charlie Cox saying, Marvel says I can't be in any of the Avengers movies or any Marvel movie or anything else. Like, they want me to stick to TV. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure, that's going to happen. Yeah. It may not be the same prison, might not be where Matt is, but it's kind of hard that you have Matt going to prison.
Hard not to.
And Spider-Man Brand New Day has
he was his lawyer.
One sequence, and there's also that sequence where Spider-Man is flying through the air with the Hand, and there's a lot of empty space, so you wonder if there's space for people that could be Daredevil within that, because it's going to be really interesting to see how, if anything, Brand New Day affects Daredevil Born Again Season 3.
It's exciting.
And just exactly where they take the story, because Fisk will be part of it in some ways. But yeah, you're going to need a new villain. You're going to need new things to kind of go after. You have to figure out exactly, what's the city's stance on vigilantes now, because we know Matt is Daredevil. Everybody knows Matt is Daredevil. How does he move on? Like Tony Stark and the few others that have, had their identity known in the MCU. How do you take Matt and let him kind of move on and be when his identity is out there?
I've got the perfect solution for this problem, though. You just walk on down to Bleecker Street, you find Doctor Strange, you get him to cast a spell. You get problem solved. What could possibly go wrong?
Well, they said they're not going to, that the producers and showrunners already came out saying, we're not going to retcon it. We're not going to make people forget.
I know.
So they can't do that.
Right. I know. It's just, it's naturally where your mind goes with all of the MCU stuff. It's like easy. Just go down to Bleecker Street. He's right. He's a hop, skip, and a jump away from Hell's Kitchen. Just go ahead and go down there. Like,
it would be nice to see, especially with Punisher showing up in Brand New Day, that maybe we get a Doctor Strange nod, or we get some. It's the hardest thing with Marvel when you have so many heroes and villains within a city, even though it's a big city of New York. How do they just never run across each other?
Right, and now you're starting to bleed into other potential properties that we know are kind of coming or have been rumored to be coming. Like, we've heard about the rumored Midnight Sun show. We've heard about, obviously you saw what's up with the Thunderbolts. I think Bullseye might be going along that avenue, maybe potentially as like a Thunderbolt / Dark Avenger kind of territory, because there's been a little bit of rumors that they might dabble in the Dark Avengers type stuff, which would be fun. Because, he's on a plane with Mr. Charles going somewhere. He's going to be doing something. So,
you have the X-Men coming.
Yeah, you have all kinds of really cool things down the pipeline from Marvel that I'm excited to see what they do. And obviously with the films and stuff, that's going to be a big indicator of where they're overall going creatively, obviously. But you have our corner of New York here with Daredevil that's just so well done, and we'll see how the events of Spider-Man affect it, obviously. And obviously I know we're getting ready to talk about the Punisher special, because you can't have Daredevil and not have Punisher. It was a little, I mean, knowing ahead of time how it was going to be laid out, you still kind of was hoping to get some kind of glimpse of Frank Castle here.
I was a little bit annoyed that because you got that credit scene that you're showing that he's going to escape, but there's just nothing. Yeah. And they say scheduling with everything he had going on, but still, like, you needed something in this season that at least addressed where Frank is.
Yeah, get all of these things crossing back over, and who knows, maybe he shows up in season 3 with the I mean, God, I would love to see like a Luke Cage, Frank Castle just going in and just destroying and wrecking some people. I mean, you've got Jessica now with her new updated alias
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 Investigations.
Investigations up, which kind of leads me to hope that if they're going to have the Luke Cage thing, maybe you get that Heroes for Hire show that we've been wanting forever, that we thought was going to happen with the Netflix spinoffs, where it could just be Iron Fist and Luke Cage, or if they can't work it out and have Iron Fist do it, if it's Jessica Jones and Luke Cage doing kind of a Heroes for Hire kind of thing too, potentially. But we'll see where all of that winds up too. But man, what a season! This, like I said at the beginning, this felt like such a throwback to the Daredevil show that I love so much. Like, you could just see how much difference it makes when there's a singular creative vision done throughout an entire season of the quality that we get. Now, I've seen some of the criticism that it lagged a little too much with the action, but for me personally, with the development of everything story-wise, I didn't miss it as much, because when we got it,
It still had some solid, great action sequences.
Phenomenal action sequences in this season, and yeah, it wasn't like, you can't be all gas, go, go, go the entire time. You have to let stuff breathe a little bit, and it can be difficult to find that balance, really, where you're not doing too much exposition, too much story, where you are a comic book show where people want to see Daredevil just running and jumping and kicking and fighting. We want our singular shot hallway sequence fight and all of that stuff. Like, we want all of those things, and those are all valid things, but you still have to move. They do such a good job of making you care deeply about all of these characters, because like I couldn't stand Daniel in season 1, but season 2 I started to really come around to him, because you saw the relationship he had with BB, and the love that he had for her, and him kind of really sacrificing himself to protect her, really, because it's legitimately what he did, instead of handing her over, because they played with the whole Buck thinks you're the leak, but it's really BB and you're covering for BB, but now we're going to test your loyalty to Fisk. Are you going to turn her in? And he winds up not, and it cost him his life, literally. Like, you felt for a character like that. You felt for Buck in this show. Like, I really enjoyed the performance that Buck had in this season as well.
Yeah.
And
even though I hated Heather, you got her her emotional just journey through this season of her mental breakdown that's happening.
Even if I still hate her, even though she's going to become Muse, I'm excited to see what they do with that and see where they go with her. And I really, 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 please, I'm going to look in the camera when I say this, Disney, give me a Karen Page Muse fight sequence, a whole episode if you want.
She needs to be the one to beat
Yes,
Muse
because
down.
the face-off that they had when she was interrogating her while she was in handcuffs and everything, I'm just like,
she gets that
I want to see these two, because you see Karen kind of really fight. And there's a lot of people that, like, she's doing a lot of heavy training, and she's got this edge to her a little bit here that people are wondering, like, hey, maybe is she going to take up and do some of that Daredevil stuff while Matt's in prison, because he kind of traded her prison time for himself too, to get her off the hook, and it wound up costing him to go back to prison too. And you kind of wonder if she's going to take up a little bit of that mantle too. And
because we have her filling in an Elektra type role, even though because we don't know if there's that possibility that Elektra could, as you know, with revivals and everything else throughout comic books, if she's going to make an appearance or not, or maybe Karen will fill that role and beat the crap out of Muse.
I want that fight.
She has to be able to knock the crap out of Heather.
Season 3. That's gonna be so satisfying. When
you saw it in her eyes when she slapped her in that interrogation. Like, I want to rip your face off.
That came over her face. Like, let them fight, please. Uncuff her now. Let them fight in that. Let them fight in that room.
Because it needs to be something where she does, like, maybe she attacks Karen and she doesn't know, and they get in a scuffle and the mask comes off, and that's when Karen snaps. Like, oh, it's you. Okay.
I need that fight to happen in season 3. Give it to us, please. Like, I know they're shooting it now. And I want to see that fight. That fight has to happen. That's going to be one thing to really look forward in season 3.
She's been so incredible all throughout the Netflix series and through Born Again here and there. She's been a little bit lighter role in a way, but she's just been such a strong actress and character in the show.
I'm glad that they leaned fully into her and Matt just being a thing, really, especially after the thing with him. And
we almost thought they were doing with Karen and Punisher at the end of last season, and then they pop up this season, and nope, they're fully at it.
Yeah, they're fully in. I'm like, good. That just works. Their dynamic as a couple, it works. The tension's always been there. It's a little bit of a detraction from the comics. I know they kind of have a thing and they kind of don't. It's kind of messy too, and I just kind of am glad that they just dove in and they're a thing. Like, okay, good. That gives both of them motivation for each other. It's well done, and I'm excited that she's back in that capacity while kind of on her own journey too, and kind of dealing with the stuff that she's always dealt with, and she's carried that baggage with her, and it's just hardened her to this point that, yeah, I'm ready to see her fight Muse. Give me the Karen Muse fight. That's gonna be awesome if we finally get it.
Yeah, that takes me back just to one last thing about that final episode, because before Matt gets arrested, it's Karen and Matt sitting in a restaurant with lights everywhere, and they're having that kind of table dinner that Foggy and Karen and Matt had at the end of the Netflix series. So you got a nice harken back to that, but you're left to a point that, all right, what is Karen going to do? What fight is she going to be putting up for Matt? Is she going to be the one leading the defenders and getting them to do stuff? Because, Jessica Jones, she's not really going to be the leader type of stuff. Luke could possibly be, maybe Danny and stuff, but you feel like Karen's going to be that glue in between them all, between Matt, between the defenders. And it's going to be really interesting what they do with their character. But yeah, if you set up this whole season of her training and fighting, she got a few things in here, but not a whole lot. It wasn't much of anything. That's got to be a build up for her to just knock the living crap out of Heather in season 3.
Has to. Just has to be the case. But yeah, man, what a good bounce back season for them. Like, I enjoyed Daredevil Born Again season 1. Like, I really did. Like, I'd still put it near the bottom of my rankings of overall Daredevil seasons. And that's not a slight to season 1, because there was a lot of it I really did like, but this felt more overall as a season that I would put up there with, potentially the first and third seasons of Daredevil itself, where, season 1 of Daredevil on Netflix may just be a perfect season of television. It just really is, because it's got everything. Season 3 was phenomenal as well. I would put season 2 up there kind of in between season 1 of the original Netflix series and season 3 of the original series, and kind of put it right in between there as kind of like a 1B to a 1A of Daredevil season 1, because that was in immaculate peak television, honestly. And I feel like it's getting back to that point for me where this was really, really well done. I'm very excited to see what the future of the show looks like, because thankfully we're not getting that long of a wait between season 2 and 3. It's going to be out in 2027. I'm very excited about that. Give it to me now. Let me see what you've shot so far. Can we watch some of the early footage? I don't care if it's not edited. I don't care.
It's also interesting that season 3 is going to be after Spider-Man and before Doomsday, or after Doomsday. It's after Doomsday.
It's after, yeah.
Because Doomsday is this Christmas with Dune.
Yeah.
Keep forgetting that we got Spider-Man and Doomsday here.
There's a lot
so we have potentially 2 things. Not only Spider-Man Brand New Day, but you have Doomsday that potentially could affect things for season 3 of the show, since it is connected to the MCU. But season 2 of Daredevil Born Again was a fantastic season for this show. It got back to the dark, gritty, just fluent storytelling that we had from the Netflix series. Season 1 had most of it, but this one really kind of nailed what they did so well with the Netflix series. I'm giving it a 9. I think it was such a great season. It's short. It's 8, about 45 to 50-minute episodes. You wanted a little bit more, but it did a great job of telling the story it needed to tell in those 8 episodes. We got plenty of great action sequences, but this one was definitely more about the heart, the emotion, and the politics of what's going on between Matt and Fisk in the city and everything else, and it all reaching a boiling point that it wasn't all about Daredevil having to go out there and be full-blown action star stuff. He had to do things a little more secretively and calmly and stuff, but it was such a great, fun season. Everybody is fantastic, but Charlie Cox, incredible as Matt, and Daredevil as Evo. Vincent is the pinnacle of Fisk. Like, he's just the embodiment of that character. He plays it so incredibly well, and getting to see that Fisk rage moment in that final episode was just absolutely incredible on him. But it was a fantastic season.
Yeah, I'm landing on a 9 as well. That's where I'm landing on it too. And it's such a well done show. It does leave you wanting more, which is a good thing because it doesn't overstay its welcome. It does plot along a little bit in some points, but it's by design and on purpose. So it can knock it just a little bit where it's like people that are just starved for Matt Murdock just out there beating up bad guys for an entire season. Like, you don't get that in spades. The action you do get is phenomenal. It is well done, well told stories. You care about these characters deeply. I will stand on business, and I'm not just saying that as a diehard fan of Daredevil, the character. Matt Murdock himself, but Charlie Cox is right up there with, in my opinion, Robert Downey Jr. on as spot on of a casting for a character as we have gotten. He, in my opinion, is the epitome of Matt Murdock on the screen, as well as Vincent D'Onofrio for Wilson Fisk as Kingpin. Like, those two guys are absolutely perfectly cast in their roles, and it's just an absolute joy to watch. I don't want to see any it's at that point where I don't want to see anybody else take on those mantles. It does. I know it'll happen eventually at some point where obviously these roles get recast and, you know, somebody will take up the mantle eventually, but like Charlie Cox's performance is so phenomenal as Daredevil. I would put him on kind of like that Mount Rushmore of MCU castings. If I had to put it on there, he would be up there with Robert Downey Jr. in my opinion, as far as like picture perfect. Couldn't have cast it better if you tried.
Yeah, you got to put Charlie and Vincent right up there with Robert.
You have to, and it's incredible job that they've done. I'm so glad that they're back doing this again on Disney. And I'm so excited to see what season 3 brings. I just wish it wasn't going to be so long before we got it. That's the biggest negative I could say is the wait now that we have to see how they follow up. I'm excited.
But we got 2 big Marvel films in between there to see what shapes and changes things for that season. Because if it's connected, it's got to change it in somehow. That's especially if Doomsday is setting up for Secret Wars, and we have no idea if Daredevil is going to be a part of Secret Wars or is a part of Doomsday or anything else, we really don't know kind of what to expect here. Because for season 1, we didn't really have anything that affected the Daredevil world come out, but now we have 2 potential films in the MCU that's going to affect it. But yeah, Charlie has just been spot on phenomenal. Among fans, he gets all the love and the credit that he deserves, but I don't think in the acting community and everything else, when it comes to award seasons and everything else, they're not recognizing just how incredible he is in playing Matt and how Vincent is playing Kingpin. They have such deep layers and emotion to these characters, and just what Charlie puts his body through for the stunt work, along with having to pretend to be blind. Like, he even said that projects he's done after Daredevil was over, they had to keep getting on him because he had to train himself to like not look at people. And they said, you're not looking at them. Like, he was still like so enamored in that role and world when Daredevil ended. Like, he still kind of was pretending to be blind in films. Like, you don't have to pretend to be, you can see in this one. And it just shows the commitment he had, because
incredible commitment.
It is very hard for an actor to pretend to be blind.
Sure.
And truthfully and honestly feel like he's blind. Even the fight sequences and other things, like he just pulls off like, this is a blind guy who has a superhuman ability in ways with his, sonic hearing and everything else. But I don't think he gets the amount of love and credit he deserves for how phenomenal he is as Matt.
Yeah, sonic hearing and heavy breathing. That's kind of his 2 superpowers. That's one of my favorite like things to kind of poke fun at the Daredevil a little bit is the overemphasis on the heavy breathing, because my God, that man. But to be fair, he's doing a lot. He should be out of breath. But it's just one of my favorite things that people have picked up on, just the heavy breathing and doing it in space. Like, I can't not see it now and not pay attention to it, but it's very funny. But yeah, the commitment that he has to that role is just stellar, second to none. It's such a phenomenal performance. Yeah, the accolades, whatever. Like, at this point,
he doesn't need them, but it's still like
it would be nice to see them recognized, like industry wise, for it. But fan wise, the fans of the show like are just giving him all the flowers he deserves, and rightfully so, because it's just S-tier performance from Charlie Cox in this.
Yeah, and again, can't give enough praise to Vincent for Kingpin. Like, we really only had one other live action Kingpin that I can remember with Michael Clark Duncan and the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie, which the director's cut of that was much better than the theatrical cut, but it was still a little rough. Which you had Jon Favreau in there as the foggy character and everything, and and you got him who was the lead up of Iron Man, so it's just funny to see how everything kind of came full circle with a lot of stuff. But yeah, Vincent and Charlie are just incredible, and I can't not just crave and want more of them, which is, I am glad they're moving on from Kingpin a bit for season 3, because there's only you had 5 seasons now that's been all about Kingpin and everything else. You've got to have a little bit more. I mean, you had The Hand and you've had more, but you can't have it all be about Kingpin, but you just can't let him go. Like, there has to be Vincent as Kingpin in there. Please let Vincent be in Spider-Man movie or Avengers movie or something where he gets to interact with Spider-Man and other characters. Like, he's just keep letting Vincent be Kingpin, and whatever we can let him in, and Charlie should just be in everything as Matt and Daredevil. Like, I get maybe they want to keep him grounded in that street level with keeping him on the show, but come on. I need to see him in an Avengers mashup. Like, we saw him in a Spider-Man film so far. He's got to get an Avengers mashup.
You gotta have those interactions with some of those other characters for sure. But Daredevil Born Again season 2, the entire season is out on Disney Plus. Go check it out if you haven't watched it yet. 8 episodes, super easy watch. Go see it, love it. Let us know what you think about it. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, so thank you so much for tuning in. And if you feel so inclined, do all the things to help the show out, from follows, shares, likes, and comments on social media to subscribing on YouTube and your favorite audio platforms. All of it helps us out so much, and we can't thank you enough for all the support.
You can also become a subscriber over on Patreon to get each episode delivered to you early, exclusive merch items, and your name read out at the end of every episode. Check it out at patreon.com/we'll bring the popcorn.
That's going to do it for this episode, and we'll see you on the next one.